many of you listening, today is extra special. It's Thanksgiving, and before we start today's episode, I want to let you know how thankful I am that you are here. Having this podcast and going on this artist journey with you has been such a blessing. Thanks for being part of the Help I'm Artist community, and most of all for making your art, for taking your creative heart seriously, for growing and developing your gift. What you do matters. And as you generously pour yourself into your art, I'm convinced that many are touched and will be inspired. Happy Thanksgiving. Are you an artist, creator or maker, and you love to make and create, but you feel stuck and you're unsure what next steps to take? Well, all is not lost. As an art business coach, I can help you get more clarity and help you set up a plan for your next steps, so that you can start to see results in your art career. A one-on-one coaching session is a powerful way to help you move forward on your artist journey. Whether you need help thinking through your art website, setting up an art routine, or organizing your first exhibition, a personal coaching session will help you take those next steps. You can DM me on @SoniaSmallHere or head over to my website to find out more. I know I would love to connect with you. What you choose to give your energy and your time to will invariably determine the level of your growth. The first step to finding your focus is recognizing that you are being distracted. When you get real and honest about what and who you are giving your attention to, you can start to shift and align your time and energy with your dreams and your goals. My name is Sonia SmallHere. I'm an artist, an art coach, and a course creator. When I graduated from the Art Academy, I had learned how to paint and how to draw, but I had no idea how to earn a living with my creativity. I was not prepared for the life as a working artist. This often left me quite frustrated, sometimes on the verge of calling it quits, throwing away my brushes and giving it all up. But I'm so glad I didn't. After many failed attempts and valuable lessons learned, I've discovered ways to turn my creative dream of being a working artist into a reality, now giving me the freedom to live the life I love. I created the Help I'm Artist podcast because no matter where you are on your journey, whether you're just starting out or maybe you've been a working artist for a while, you too can take steps to turn your creative passions into a meaningful, sustainable profession. The Help I'm Artist podcast is filled with fresh inspiration, step-by-step practical insights, and interviews with artists who are experts in their field. If you're a smart artist or one in the making who is looking for new and exciting ways to get your art out of your studio and into the hands and hearts of an audience that's appreciative and willing to pay its worth, then you're in the right place. Happy listening. This episode is all about turning your distractions into traction. While this pandemic is real and continues to keep us in its grip, there is a still larger enemy lurking in the shadows. Whether you're aware of it or not, there's a battle commencing for you, for your time. The fight is for your attention. You may be aware of it, and at times you may just surrender and pretend that it's not there. Thousands of impulses, nudges, pokes, and pitches are thrown at you every minute, begging for you to stop and take notice. It's safe to say that this is the biggest battle that we face in our time. Those that scream the loudest, poke the hardest, come up as winners. Their prize is not only your attention, but they plunder all your attention stands for. They steal your talents, rob your dreams, snuff out your passions, and hold your future ransom. All those distractions are costing you dearly. And if you want to build that enjoyable, sustainable art business, it's important to detect who you are giving your attention to. Because the most precious commodity that you have is your time. Your time is precious. You may not have control over the rate those minutes, hours, or days whiz by, but you do have control over how you spend your time. This may sound great in a podcast, but experience teaches us that those invisible forces tugging at your time and calling for your attention often have the upper hand. It's time to get the control back. When you become aware of how and to who you are giving your attention, only then you can get the control back and use all of that precious time to build your dreams, make your art, and live the life you love. In this episode, I want to look at 5 life hacks, actually 5 steps, 5 action steps that you can take to start to combat those distractions, using your time, your focus, and your attention to create, to make and to build that life, that art career, to make that art that you're happy about, that you're proud of, and that you so enjoy. But before we get started with these steps, let's look at what distraction actually is. If we look at the root word distraction, it's derived from the word trahare, which means to be pulled away from the things that you want to do. Doesn't that sound very familiar? Being pulled away from making your art, getting distracted, not being able to head to your studio or take out your paints or get the job done, all those things that you have in your heart, all that inspiration you'd like to get down on paper, but somehow it just doesn't happen. You seem to be pulling away from those things that you really want to do. To get a better understanding of what distraction is, it's good to discover what it's not. What would you say is the opposite of being distracted? Many would say focus. Although regaining a clear focus is only part of it, the opposite of distraction is actually traction. Traction meaning being pulled towards what you want to do. So distractions is pulling you away from what you actually want to do. And traction, the opposite, is something that pulls you towards something that you actually want to do. How you manage your distractions and your ability to control what you give your attention to will determine your actions and will start giving your art career, and your life traction. Let's look at those 5 steps, those 5 hacks, those 5 things that you need to consider from turning your distractions into traction. Number 1, you need to recognize that you are being distracted. You are here listening to this podcast because you want to turn your creativity into a meaningful profession. And as you set out on your artist journey, there are many choices for you to consider. What you choose to give your energy and your time to will invariably determine the level of your growth. The first step to finding your focus is recognizing that you are being distracted. When you get real and honest about what and who you are giving your attention to, you can start to shift and align your time and energy with your dreams and your goals. Take time this week to consciously recognize what you're giving your time to. What are you giving your attention to? And remember, those distractions can be sneaky. When you procrastinate and unintentionally binge watch your favorite Netflix series, then it's obvious that you're being wonderfully distracted, and you know better that you should be using your time more effectively. But it's often those good things that keep us from our best things. So when you're checking up on your social media again, or you're cleaning up your studio for the 1000th time, these are good things, wouldn't you say? But if they're keeping you from what you really want to do, then it's time for you to make a shift. Head over to the worksheet that comes with this episode, and you can start to make conscious decisions, recognizing that you are being distracted and what steps you can take to turn those distractions into traction. Let's look at step number 2. It's time to pinpoint what you're being distracted from. Something is only a distraction if you know what you're being distracted from. Let me say that again. Something is only a distraction if you know what you're being distracted from. Are there distractions keeping you from reaching your art goals? If you're making that transition from distraction, being pulled away from what you really want to do, to finding traction, pulling towards what you want to do, you need to clearly identify what you really want to do. If you don't plan your time and choose what you're going to do and what you're going to give your attention to very intentionally, then somebody else will do this for you. This step number 2, is there to help you identify your art vision and break it down into smaller action steps. It's time to get super clear to identify, first of all, what is your art dream? and start to distill your art vision. What does art success look like for you? Where do you want to be these next 3 months, or the next 3 weeks, or the next 3 days? Being really intentional about your goals will help you stick to the plan and stay on course. And then you can measure whether you're being distracted, being pulled away from what you want to do, or finding traction, being pulled towards something that you really want to do. Go to the worksheet. There will be exercises for you to do to start to pinpoint what you're being distracted from, so that you can get super clear about your art goals and your art vision and turn those into doable steps. Step number 3. It's time to get clear about why you're being distracted. Now, their smartphones and apps and computers are cleverly designed to keep your eyes on these devices for as long as possible. Your time and your focus have become a hot commodity. It's your precious attention that's now being monetized. But technology is not the enemy. You can do wonderful things with your devices. They are neither good or bad. It's how you choose to use them that will either pull you towards what you want to do or pull you away from it. The good news is that you don't need to head off to a deserted island to rid yourself of these distractions. You need to discover why you're being distracted. This is hack number 3, getting clear about your why. Why is it that you're being distracted? Because your distractions have triggers. These pings and beeps we call external triggers, and these are the most obvious. But there are those subtle internal emotional triggers that we often overlook, yet they lie at the heart of many of our distractions. Studies tell us that the human condition is inherently wired to resist and escape discomfort. It's just as well, otherwise we already would have frozen to death or died of hunger. The next time you feel distracted, investigate why you're resisting a task. Why you're resisting going into your studio. Why is it that you resist finishing a painting or writing that blog or sending that email? What is keeping you? It could be external. Then, of course, you can turn off your phone, turn off your notifications, hide away all those devices until you have done the task. That task that's bringing you towards your art goals. But it may be those subtle emotional internal triggers. What is it that you're trying to escape? What is it that you're trying to avoid? So take some time this week to investigate why you're resisting a task. Is there a feeling of discomfort you're trying to escape? The more you understand why you're not doing what you really want to do, the more you can start to do something about it. Let's move on to number 4. So now you're clear about the fact that you are being distracted. You know what you're being distracted from, what you'd rather be doing with your time, and you're getting a clearer picture of why you're being distracted. Now it's time to get really clear of who you are as an artist, why you're making your art, and why does this matter? Because these are core questions for you to find the answers to if you want to create from that place of authenticity. Finding your authenticity is all tied up with your core values. Your core values are the things that are most valuable to you. Does your schedule reflect what's the most valuable for you? If you're chronically ignoring what you treasure most, what you value, you'll end up living a lesser version of your life. And that would be just too sad. Have you ever thought about what your core values are? What drives you to make your art? What gets you really riled up or really filled with joy? What do you love about making your art, and what do you want to communicate through that what you're making? Finding out what drives you, what makes you excited, what your core values are super important. These values are your motivators and will determine how you plan your day and use your energy. That's to say, if you're using your time wisely. If you get clear about why it all matters to you, what motivates you, and how you plan your day, you can make a conscious, intentional effort to not get distracted, not being pulled away from what really matters to you and what's valuable to you. The final step is turning that distraction into traction, taking intentional steps to being pulled towards what you really want to do. In the introduction, we concluded that the opposite of distraction isn't focus, but it's traction. Traction is all about action. Traction comes when you actually do what you say that you're going to do. Now that really might sound simple, but to get traction for your art and for your art business takes intentional thought and careful planning. To successfully turn your distractions into traction, you need to get clear about these two things. What are you going to be doing, and when are you going to be doing it? Your traction action plan is specific and time-based. The success of your art and your art business is measured by your ability to do what you plan to do. And this takes practice, so be kind to yourself. The more you can identify what needs to be done and how long it will take you to do it, the more refined and effective your traction plan, your action plan, and the results will become. So your distractions won't just magically disappear. You need to get super clear about the fact that you are being distracted, getting really honest about yourself, what you're being distracted from, what your goals and your plans are, why you're being distracted, what are those internal and external triggers, what's valuable for you, why is it important for you to not be distracted so that you can grow and develop towards what you really want to do, and that to create traction, you need to take action. It's not just something that's going to dissolve. You need to take intentional steps to turn all those distractions into action plans. You need to get clear about what you want to do so that you can measure, am I being distracted? I mean, if you want to be distracted, as long as you're doing that intentionally, then it's not a distraction. But if you're doing what you really don't want to do and you don't know what you want to do, then it becomes messy. So you want to be clear about what you want to do and when you want to do it. So take some time this week too to sit down and plan your week. You can actually manage your time. It's time to get intentional how you use your time and to what and to whom you're going to give your attention. Because once you recognize those distractions, identify what you're being distracted from and why you're being distracted, you can start to create a real traction plan, action plan for your art and for your art business. And this podcast is here for you to take action. When you give your time and attention to something, it will grow. It just can't help itself. If you give your time and your energy to your art, it will grow. You will start to see maturity. You'll start to see growth in your art and your art business. And as you learn to manage those distractions and intentionally choose to invest in your art life, your art will flourish and grow. And in closing, as an artist, you don't only design and create beautiful art, but you can actually craft your own perfect week. Your perfect week is based on who you are. What's the most valuable for you? What's your value? What do you find valuable? And where you want to go? Your art goals. So take some time this week to look at your week. Open up your planner, write down action steps that you want to take intentionally for the next 7 days. What action steps will bring you closer towards your art goals? And what action steps do you need to be specific about? And what's time-based? In what time span are you going to achieve these goals? Each day visit your goals and identify what you've completed. Have you done what you said that you're going to do? Maybe you need to adjust your plans. Maybe you're being overambitious. Maybe you don't have a real idea of what time span it takes to complete a task, to complete a painting, to organize your workspace, to get something going, to go through a brief, work with a client or on a commission. So to get a real idea of your time and get good time management. And that comes through experience. But visit your goals every day and identify what you've completed. Have you done what you said that you were going to do? Because this is where the traction is. And if you've succeeded, and then celebrate and give yourself a reward. A pat on the back, an extra long walk, or a delicious chocolate with your latte will go a long way. Remember, you're going for progress, not for perfection. And if you don't do what you set out to do, then recognize this and identify why. Why didn't you achieve what you set out that you wanted to do for the week or for the day? What internal and external triggers distracted you? Do you need to set more realistic goals? Do you need to guard your time more effectively? So it's time to get realistic and get into action so that you can turn your distractions into traction, so that you can start to grow towards your art goals. This episode comes with a comprehensive worksheet where you can start to dissect what's holding you back and discover ways that you can improve your productivity. It's yours to download for free at www.sonjasmallhere.com/hacks. Did you know that the Help I'm Artist podcast has its very own community? It's a place where we can connect on a more personal level. It's a place of connection, learning, and inspiration, and you're welcome to join in. Head over to Facebook and look for the Help I'm Artist podcast community. Well, that's all for this week. Join me again next time for another episode of the Help I'm Artist podcast. If you don't want to miss an episode, then you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to this episode. And leave a review, as this means the world to me and will make the podcast more visible and easier for other artists to find it. Thanks for that. Have an amazing week, and I look forward to connecting with you next time. Until then.